Hello, I am Christopher Miller. This is for 541 TESL Culture. For this assignment I used the Alvino E. Fontini text, and I selected the activity on page, one second here, let me find it. Page 167, Getting to Know You posters. I am currently working at a boys' middle school, Busan Sojung Hakgyo, a boys' middle school in Busan, South Korea. Very, very interesting environment, a lot of energy in the classroom, always. A lot of people know that South Korea, in many respects, a very culturally homogenous society, but that is changing in many, many ways. Two interesting facts which will illustrate how South Korea is changing. First, international marriage is a very interesting thing that happens in Korea. Both women and men, Korean men and women, sometimes have a preference for marrying, spouses of different nationality. Often Korean women might marry Japanese men, and Korean men, especially older men, sometimes they may marry Filipino women, maybe Chinese women. Anyhow, to show how this is kind of changing Korean society a little bit, between 1990 and 2005, the number of international marriages has, I think it's 250,000 between that period. Also, Korea receiving a lot of immigration. So between 1997 and 2007, Korea's total resident immigrant population increased from 390,000 to 1 million. So right now in the Republic of Korea, about 2.5% of the population is, for lack of a better term, non-Korean, of non-Korean ethnic origin. And of course, with the international marriage situation, one would expect that, this society, which was one time called the Hermit Kingdom, will continue to become more and more diverse. There's a nice little cliche that many Koreans are fond of saying here. You see it on many advertisements here. Korea is dynamic. In fact, if you look in Busan, where I'm working, you will see many, many government-promoted advertisements say, Dynamic Busan, meaning this place is always changing. Culturally, this place is changing enormously. So that's part of the reason why I selected this assignment. I think students need to have their cultural horizons expanded somewhat. I would say Koreans, in my experience, I'm talking more about students here, high school students. I worked with high school students for 2 years, and currently I'm working at a boys' middle school, which I've been here a little over a month, so this is kind of a new experience for me. The students, they're not so much racist, they're not so much prejudiced, as I would say just very, very insensitive at times. So some examples I've heard, whenever I tell people that I'm an American, always hear kind of very broad generalizations about, who I am, like, oh, do you know Michael Jordan? Or, would you like a hot dog? Just very, very blanket statements. They don't really see the individual. Also, in terms of race, sometimes you'll hear, students refer to like African Americans as things like chocolate. Or, in my previous school where I worked at a high school, there was an African American student, or not an African American student, but a student that, if I were to guess, was of mixed African heritage somehow, some way, and Korean heritage. And students would refer to him as Obama. So for lack of a better term, I'd say students are very insensitive. So doing the Getting to Know You posters activity, I think, will make them give them a little more awareness of, there's a diverse world. There's a world besides just Korea. So I took the assignment from Fontini and I modified it slightly. So the actual activity calls for using students to create posters about themselves, including things like their hobbies, their name, their country, blah, blah, blah. But again, this is basically a culturally homogeneous society. To the best of my knowledge, talking with staff, working with students, I would say my school, close to 100% Korean. I don't see any evidence of any, people from different cultural background in the school I work in. So I think it would benefit students to see some diversity, have some exposure to diversity. Anyhow, I modified the assignment slightly. Students will not introduce themselves to the poster. Instead, I will give them kind of simulated pen pal letters. And students will take the pen pal letter and take the information from the poster, we'll take the information from students will take the information from the letter and apply something to the poster. There's basic criteria they need to include: the name of the person in the letter, what country he comes from, 3 hobbies, and a career goal. This is very, very simple, and the reason I did that is because students generally do not have very good grammatical skills in English, so you really have to adapt to the assignments and adapt it to the student's level. So with that being said, I believe now I will start the teaching portion of the video.